Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are, whoever you are, and I'm hearing my own voice. Hold on. That darn Twitch. Although the delay on Twitch is amazing. It's like a second and a half. So, folks, if you want to get the immediate response, Twitch is the place to go. Twitch.tv/nerdcaliber. But welcome once again to Nerd Week Live here on the various platforms brought to you by us, the folks at Nerd Caliber. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter on the Facebooks as a cosplay photographer, and Burley_Adopter on the Twitters. And joining me tonight is the, repping the school. Look at you.
Oh, yeah.
Repping the school. Introduce yourself, sir.
Byron D0 at your service. My government name is Byron McNeil, and I am a contributing writer for Nerd Caliber. I also have my own webcomic on the various facets of the interweb called Codename Blackbird. It is basically a Batman type story told under the vein of Black Lives Matter. Yes, so if you want to check it out, it is Codename Blackbird.thecomicseries.com.
Awesome, very cool. Check it out, folks. And let's see, do we have anything to promote? Nope, so we'll say hello to... We don't have anything to promote. Oh my god, this COVID stuff. Let's see, on the YouTubes, Ronald Jose, welcome to the show. Waifu Pennywise, welcome back. Morrigan Zoe, welcome to the show. Joy of Grace, welcome to the show. Myra Martinez, welcome to the show. Luminous, welcome to the show. Welcome back. Let's see, we don't have anybody on the Twitches or on the Facebooks yet, but I'll try to monitor those a little bit more closely than I have in the past couple of shows. There we go. Episodes. Whatever we call this stuff we're doing. Apparently we don't call it anything very clear. But we have our first topic, and that is... So those are, of course, Gelflings. They are from the show, from the movie Dark Crystal, of course, but then also from the recent Netflix show Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, which was the prequel to the movie. And the news is that Netflix has decided to cancel the show after one season, despite the fact that it ended on a cliffhanger. So we won't really see what happened to them. But it's been confirmed by Netflix. It's been confirmed by the CEO of Jim Henson Company, who's also the producer of the show, executive producer. And there's no confirmation from the show as to why this happened, or from Netflix. But it's Netflix, and performance versus money is pretty much what they live by. Yeah. There's an awful lot of rumors without anybody putting out any real numbers. You okay there? Remember, talk through one tube, drink through the other. Pretty important. Somebody does this all the time. So the numbers were below, the viewership numbers were below what Netflix would be happy with, according to these reports. Again, nobody has actual real numbers. Versus how much it...
Yeah, Netflix doesn't really like to give out the proper numbers either.
They don't like to give out numbers about anything except the corporate numbers that they have to report in their financial filings. And even then, probably not very happy about it. But I want to show you something here that gives you kind of an example of why I think that this may be the case. So I just really crazily zoomed into that image, and I'm going to move the image back over. So that's one of the Gelflings from the show. That's a puppet, folks. That's foam. That's probably latex. It's whatever. There's no CG whatsoever in this particular character and scene. That's an interesting point. We'll address that in just a second, Waifu. It has nothing to do with any of the topics, but it's worth mentioning. So the entire show, with very little exception, was all practical effects. And you can imagine that hiring the Henson Company to create essentially hundreds of individual realistic puppets with human-level skin texture, as you can see in this image, Must have been
Not
just
cheap.
not cheap, crazy expensive, I would say. So yeah, if you don't have, if it's not Game of Thrones level audience, or Stranger Things, to actually make a reference that fits with Netflix, it's no surprise that they aren't that interested in keeping it going. So, and I'll have to say, I did not watch the whole thing. So I guess I'm kind of in that camp about weak viewership. Didn't grab me.
Yeah, I can see that too. I haven't really checked it out myself, but I know that the Dark Crystal has a huge cult following, and yeah.
I would modify that.
But
I think
and
it has a strong cult following. I think the problem is that Netflix thought that also meant a huge cult following. You know,
there, yeah. Another thing I wanted to add was, the Jim Henson Company's kind of been up and down with like their non Sesame Street products lately, though, because the last thing they
God.
did that was not Muppet related was Happy Time Murders,
And that
and
was terrible.
ooh,
Terrible.
yes, it
And
was.
so out of tone for what they do. Oh,
I mean, if I can go into a bit of a non sequitur, if you want that story, watch Avenue Q.
yeah.
It does it a lot better.
With way better humor and songs. Way better
Yes,
songs. Um,
yes. This was yeah.
the brilliant The Internet is for Porn. Um, it's just it's
And
a
everybody's a little bit racist.
and everybody's a little bit. That's such a fantastic song. So that's pretty much all on that. But Waifu Pennywise said or wrote, "I heard that Netflix made a movie called Cuties. It's disgusting, but I don't know about the French version." So this is one of the things why it's really important. If you heard that Waifu Pennywise, you should go read some of the articles about it. It is a movie made by a French filmmaker. So it is the French version, made by a French filmmaker about the awfulness of the um, super young beauty pageant culture. And
Yeah.
the thing that Netflix screwed up about it was the marketing of it. They marketed it in a very prurient way to make it look like it was going to appeal to child predators and was celebrating this culture. When in fact it is 100%, even with that ironic title Cuties, it is 100% about how awful this culture is. So, big slap in the face for Netflix for really screwing up the marketing of it, and they deserve all the, not hate, but, all the vitriol they can get about that,
Yeah.
but don't apply that to the actual product. The movie is very much not what, Netflix seemed to market it as. And Waifu, Happy Time Murders, don't look it up. Please don't look it up. It's just garbage.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of watching that one in theaters
Yeah,
or Nerd Caliber.
Byron took the reviewer hit for us for that one. Anyway, moving on. Our next topic.
Furious.
Yeah, it was. This is a screenshot, of course, from the new HBO Max series, HBO Max series, Raised by Wolves. And the news is that even though the series just debuted September 3rd, and I don't think it's through the final episode yet, it has been picked up for a second season. And I skipped over one. Well, all right, we'll get back to that one. So apparently it's doing really well. I guess the way this Deadline article wrote, so the company said the show had grown its audience in its second week by nearly 50%. So it may not have had a great launch, even though it was heavily promoted, very heavily promoted. But it apparently got enough word of mouth and buzz that a bunch of people jumped in on it, at least with the second episode. Again, one that I have not had a chance to get into, and that's unfortunate because it's actually slowing down our launch of a second show we're going to be doing. So I need to get into that, but just haven't had the time. But if you like it, if you're interested in it, and it looks pretty cool, Ridley Scott seems to have a hit on his hand, and they're going for season 2.
I'm definitely going to check it out later tonight because it's been on my radar. It looks like a pretty cool show. I've also been like bogged down with like stuff like Lovecraft Country, so
yes. Another one I need to get into again so that we can get into this second kind of show that we're going to be doing.
Yes.
But and we talked last week about Lovecraft Country stepping its game up so that one of the, if not the lead of the show, although it's a pretty ensemble show, will be probably Kang. Will certainly be in the upcoming Ant-Man and the Wasp 3 or Ant-Man 3, possibly playing the.
That's a very interesting thought. So if that's the case, we'll have someone from Marvel and DC in Lovecraft Country.
Who's in Lovecraft Country from DC?
Journey Smollett Bell.
Oh yeah. Yep. Black Canary from the movie, from Suicide Squad. Not Suicide Squad. Birds of Prey.
Birds of Prey.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. All right. So we don't know. It doesn't say when the second season will be. I would assume there's a lot of effects work for Raised by Wolves, and so maybe it'll be next year. Now, this season debuted September 3rd. Maybe it'll be next September, but I don't know. It could be longer than that because of production schedules and so on. All right, now getting back to the one we missed, and I can't believe I skipped over this, and I'm sure Byron can't believe I skipped over this because I was holding this for this week. A little more than a week ago, we got the news that, or the first trailer anyway, kind of a trailer, more of a behind-the-scenes trailer, looking at the upcoming reboot for Animaniacs. And if you are any kind of a fan of, traditional animation and the brilliant voice actors that can accompany it, Animaniacs was just fantastic. Between the Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain, it was an amazing show.
And both are coming back.
And they're both coming back, yes. Pinky and the Brain is a sub-show within Animaniacs, so... but it's going to be just a thrill. Check out the trailer. Like I said, it's got a little bit of video of the new look. It's basically exactly like the old look, just cleaner and, higher definition. But a lot of it...
a couple of accents. I can tell just from, like, the logo here. I can tell there's a little more accent. A little more accent in, like, the designs.
Yeah. The waifu Pennywise, Luminous says, "Hello, nice." Or actually, I'd have to do that in Yakko's voice, and I will not try to. I will insult Rob Paulson if I try to do it. But and waifu says, "Oh, I wonder what they would look like with a fresh coat of paint." There you go. That's pretty much it.
Yes. I mean, why mess with the classic?
And thank God they managed to get all of the original voices back. I can't imagine anybody other than Maurice LaMarche doing the Brain and
Brain, absolutely.
Yeah, and whatever. Yeah.
Also, I couldn't picture anyone replacing Rob Paulson, Jess Tarnell, or Tress MacNeille.
Yeah.
Tress MacNeille, especially, is voice acting royalty.
Yep. Her dot is just perfect. And Rob Paulson is one of the nicest guys I've ever met. I mean, he's just...
He really is.
Yeah.
And Jess Tarnell is the freaking rock star.
And also a nice guy. I mean, he's got, yes.
One
of those guys with that kind of rock star hair, you'd look at him and kind of go, yeah, Yeah, you're that guy. And he ain't, which is really nice. But anyway.
I just want to see Rockstar live now.
Watch Paulson's podcast.
Talking Tunes.
Talking Tunes. Thank you very much. It's completely lost it there. Anyway, they dropped. So November 20th is when these things hit. So coming right up, folks. And apparently they dropped this last week, and it was on the 27th anniversary of the premiere of the original series. Which even then they played around with, because in the trailer it starts with 25 plus 2 years later. Like, just I love the way just be completely upfront and silly about things like that. Like you're not actually doing it on the 25th anniversary.
And one thing that I wanted to point out about the humor, like even like the little tidbit in the trailer about where you had Jess Harnell delivering Wacko's lines. He's like, I can't wait to check out my Hootie and the Blowfish.
Yes.
Hootie and the Blowfish album downloaded through Napster. I'm like, yep, that is some top-notch Animaniacs humor.
Yeah, so, and which tells me they're going to make fun of the fact that these guys were, this show was a thing, more than a decade ago. So I'm looking forward to that. Waifu Pennywise, but what if the other voice actors had a similar voice to the characters? That's happened. It happened, of course, with Bugs Bunny and all of the Looney Tunes stuff, or most of the Looney Tunes stuff, because Mel Blanc died, and he was the voice of pretty much all of them. So they had to find voice actors who could reasonably approximate that voice.
Yeah.
Billy West. Being one of them, did an excellent job.
I mean, it's funny you should mention that, because one thing Mel Blanc also did the voice of Heathcliff, and it is for that reason that they have never made a new series, because the studios didn't feel like there was anyone that could match his timing.
Wow.
So it's not uncommon in voice acting for people to just retire an IP for that reason.
I guess I may have to go back and watch some of that, because I never recall the Heathcliff cartoon being that funny. But I also had no idea that Mel Blanc was the one doing it. And you're right, there's no better comedic timing voice actor than Mel Blanc. The man was a genius. But anyway, yeah. So they could do it, but the fact that they didn't need to, and then were willing to bring back the original voice actors, it's a big plus. Big plus in my book. Not a big plus is our next topic. So I like the idea that there's going to be a video game coming out to consoles based on the Cobra Kai series. It's called Cobra Kai: The Karate Kid Saga Continues. It is, as you might expect, it's a side-scrolling fighter game like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, things like that. But the thing you're looking at right now is an actual screenshot from the game, and it aside from the fact that the graphics look shockingly out of date. I mean, we're looking like the sharpest Flash game from 2003 with some Telltale Games, cell shading sort of look to it. The action is awful. It's slow. There's none of that smooth, ultra violence from even the early Street Fighter stuff, and certainly any of them, like Mortal Kombat 11. It looks like people on Quaaludes trying to fight with martial arts.
It looks like a smartphone game.
Yeah. But this is coming to Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. It's designed for the 4th generation consoles.
If I get a review code for it, then I'll play it that way. But
yeah, and it's October 27th, so a little more than a month. If you want to check out the trailer. I mean, obviously, don't take our word for it. look at the trailer, see whether or not you think it's worth taking a shot at. No pun intended. But it looks to me just like hot garbage.
Yeah, it looks disgusting.
Yeah, and so check it out, folks. So Waifu Pennywise, so it's not like any cartoonish fighting game. Well, yeah, it is pretty much. I mean, it's a cartoonish fighting game. If you look at the what it isn't like is like a good cartoonish fighting game. Right. The action is just so slow.
It looks like a Streets of Rage knockoff. And considering that Streets of Rage 4 has already beat this game to the ground by aesthetic alone.
Yeah. If the Kickstarter funded Shenmue 3 can have, much more dynamic fight scenes and action in it than this, which is, I'm guessing, a studio developed game. It's sad. But anyway, it's enough dumping on a game that's not out yet. Just check it out, see whether or not you like it if you're into these kind of games, and go from there.
Surprises.
Much better news. Much better news. Harley Quinn, the cartoon. Not only do we get confirmation that it's going to HBO Max, it has been renewed for season 3, and that is outstanding. And this is sort of other news that isn't necessarily so good, but it's like confirming what we all knew anyway. DC Universe is done with doing original or new content shows. It's done. It's going to rename itself to DC Universe Infinite, and it's going to be a comic book subscription service like Comixology, which already carries DC stuff as well as Marvel and Indies and everything else.
For now.
Yeah, they would be idiots to lose the buying power of Comixology, which is owned by Amazon, so it has Amazon cross-promotional money behind it. They would really be silly if they...
yeah, they're definitely not going to pull out, because as soon as I said that, I was reminded of Marvel Unlimited with it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so there's a Marvel Unlimited, which is actually also something under Comixology, in addition to being a separate Marvel product. So maybe DC Universe will try to do the same thing, or DC Universe Infinite will try to do the same thing and not become a complete competitor to Comixology. It will be possibly worked into Comixology like, Marvel Unlimited. Waifu Pennywise, I wish I could watch it, but I don't have HBO or DC. It's a shame. It's insanely profane, violent, gory.
But genius.
But brilliant. Very, very thoughtful and sensitive at times, even while it's being, you've got King Shark in sort of fake Joker makeup, and, Harley wearing a hat that basically says head, biatch in charge.
The thing that I love about this show is that how much it respects the lore.
Yes, even though at times, it will kill off characters that you're kind of surprised that would get killed off because they're fairly well-known villains, but then it will fill in that slot with a fairly deeply obscure character that they just flesh out like crazy.
Such as Nora Freeze.
Yep. Yeah, or Kite Man.
Yes. Kite Man is such a good bad boy.
Yeah, it's a wonderful series, Waifu, if you can get a way to watch it. Legal, because we don't recommend non-legal ways like piracy or anything like that. Lord knows that's wrong. We don't know how you watch it. We're just saying that we can't recommend anything like any of those torrenting sites.
Yeah, exactly. But when you get a chance to watch it, you won't be sorry.
Yeah. So the DC Universe Infinite Change is going to happen sort of third week in January, January 21st of 2021. That it doesn't say in this article when season 3 of Harley Quinn will debut.
Soon, I hope.
They turned around season 2 pretty darn quickly after the hit that season 1 was. Waifu Penny, it's okay. My parents let me watch South Park. Yeah, then you've got nothing to worry about. The only difference, well, there are episodes of South Park that are just as gory. It's more consistent violence, where South Park is more consistent language and scatological humor.
I will say this much though: Alan Tudyk is perfection as the Joker.
He's perfection as everything. He's perfection as K2SO.
He's a master level voice actor.
Yes, he was perfection as King Candy.
I was just about to say the Fungin.
I mean, what the heck is? There was a character actor that he was clearly channeling the voice of back in the '60s.
I know who you're talking about. I just can't place the name.
It's his last name begins with a G. It's Gwyn or something like that. And he nailed it. And I had no idea that was Alan Tudyk until I saw the credits.
I'm almost certain that he voiced the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland. The guy you're talking about.
Yes, that guy. Yes, that guy. That actor and voice actor, because he does both or did both. Anyway, speaking of DC characters and TV, so this is not so good news, although I think it's completely understandable. This just dropped a couple of hours ago. Supergirl will end its run after the upcoming season 8, which they haven't started filming yet. One, because of pandemic, and two, because Supergirl there, Melissa Benoist, is pregnant. So apparently what they're going to do is they will start filming scenes sort of around her so that she can then come in and do her scenes once the baby is born and she's ready to come back. But because of that, they're making it an extra long season. Now it's my turn, pardon me. It's going to be 20 episodes. So that's pretty cool. If you like Supergirl, I like the concept of Supergirl. I like some of the things that have come out of Supergirl, like the upcoming Superman and Lois series.
Yes.
Because Tyler Hoechlin is one of the best Superman actors we've seen in decades.
Oh, without a doubt.
He is perfect.
I love what Melissa Benoist has done for has done for not only for the character of Supergirl, but just what she's done for like representation
for women as superheroes. I mean, we still haven't seen a MCU, well, other than Captain Marvel, we still haven't seen the first character that was supposed to be the MCU, Black Widow. We've got one female-led MCU movie out of 20 what?
Yeah.
And Melissa Benoist has been just killing it representing, the DC female-led superhero canon. I just don't like the show. I think the writing is terrible at least 50% of the time.
I just didn't have a lot of fun watching it, but it's not to the credit of the actor. It's not to the discredit of the actors.
Right.
The actors definitely have all done a great job. The actor who plays Sean Jones. He's definitely one of.
It's Dorian Harewood's son, David Harewood.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And he's he's one of my favorites. Mashad Brooks is another one.
Yep.
Is going to be playing Jax in the Mortal Kombat reboot.
Oh, cool. Waifu Pennywise, well, they can use CGI like Wonder Woman. They could, except one, it's expensive, and two, so the fact that Benoist is expecting isn't a reason necessarily that the show is running its course, is being canceled at the end of that season. They're still going to make that season. And realistically, her pregnancy will be over, and she will be out of what you would call like the regular maternity leave period, long before they've finished filming any of the stuff for that season. So she could come in easily without having to need the CGI.
But she wants to be there for her child.
She doesn't say that specifically, but I'm thinking that's the case, is that she does not want to be the lead face, almost on screen all the time of a show now that she's going to be a mom. They don't say this at all in the articles that I'm reading, but if I were to guess, I bet somebody floated the idea that they make it sort of a John Jones series, and continue with the other characters around her, because they've developed quite a deep character set. The problem is that means that she would have to come in on occasion, and she may be at the point where she's done with the character and done with that part of her life as she moves on to thinking about being, a mom. Luminous season 8. More power to her. Maria Diaz Payan, welcome to the show. Luminous season 8. I like the first few seasons, but have not been able to sit through season 4. I had no idea they planned to make 8 seasons. The writing was tedious in season 4, at least for me. I like that Supergirl used so many actresses from earlier DC shows and movies such as, Linda Carter, yeah.
Oh, yes.
I didn't... So I watched through season 2, and then I don't think I made it halfway through season 3. I would jump back in and back and forth occasionally when they introduced Superman. I wanted to see what this Superman was like, and immediately realized that Tyler Hoechlin needed his own series seasons ago. Took them way too long to do this. But yeah, I just, as much as I respect, like Byron said, David Harewood as an actor, he is a London stage raised award-winning actor. His ability in the first couple of seasons to deliver the absolutely terrible, pseudoscience gobbledygook dialogue that's in every one of these shows, all of them, Marvel, DC, all of them do it. It was almost like watching a high school play. And I was like, how can somebody this amazingly good be this amazingly bad at delivering, what's essentially garbage lines? It's because they're garbage lines.
Yeah.
If you're used to doing Shakespeare, yeah. If you're used to doing Shakespeare, when you have to say something like, I can't remember any of the lines, but like the alien technology will render your Kryptonian supersuit useless, or something like that. And like, oh. Anyway, enough complaining about the show. I'm really sad that it's going away, even though I didn't watch it for most of the latter seasons. For exactly the reason Byron said. It was hugely influential in representation. Melissa Benoist said this in her commentary about the cancellation of the show, that what that character has meant for young girls that have come up to her all around the world is enormous. And for that reason...
And it's led to like the creation of the She Authority movement, which is a conglomerate of various Arrowverse actresses who are trying to empower not only themselves but women around the world. So it's that important.
Yep. And arguably, you could say it led to Batwoman being on the air. It led to Katie Leutz as White Canary leading the Legends of Tomorrow team. Yes. It's been really important. Anyway, enough about that. Now we're moving on to another female-led superhero story. That is the wonderful actor Tatiana Maslany, who has just been cast as Jennifer Walters. I'm not going to do Jessica this time. It's a mistake I made last week, if you were tuning in. Jennifer Walters, the She-Hulk, in the upcoming Disney Plus series, The She-Hulk. Tatiana Maslany was the star of Orphan Black, a show, this is kind of a spoiler, but you find out within the first 2 episodes anyway, in which she played clones of herself. By the time I stopped watching the series, I think they were up to 4. And they were as wildly different characters, socioeconomic backgrounds as you can imagine. She is an amazingly talented actress.
Oh, yes.
And we talked about this last week. The show landed a director who has directed episodes, mostly television stuff, who's directed episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I can't remember some of the others. Some of the most edgy humor shows on TV.
Would be perfect for the She-Hulk.
And the lead writer was a writer on Rick and Morty. And if you, I think it's going to be a blast. If you ever watched Orphan Black, one of the great things about Tatiana Maslany is she has attitude for days.
She's such a great character actor.
Yep. And in her literally her first starring television work, she was called upon to do almost a half dozen characters. Regularly, repeatedly, often acting against herself from one character to the other.
Watching her on a BBC and hearing her British accent, I was under the impression that she was from the UK. It's like, nope, she was born in the US of A.
Yep. In fact, until I realized that, when I looked this stuff up, the first episode, I went, that is like the worst British person doing a New York accent I've ever heard. And then as it turns out, she's not British at all. Her British accent was so good, I thought she was British doing a bad U.S. accent. Now, having said that, I ultimately didn't watch more than the first season of Orphan Black. Another show where I found the writing to be really problematic. Which was too bad because, again, she's just so talented. She's also tiny.
Yes.
And
Mark Ruffalo isn't exactly a powerhouse either.
But... And that makes me wonder whether or not they're going to do essentially a Mark Ruffalo-like CG Hulk for the She-Hulk when she transforms.
That was it, honestly.
It would look great. I think they kind of have to do it because Maslany is so tiny. In the comics, Jennifer Walters is a fairly statuesque woman to start with. And then when she turns into the Hulk, initially, she is now actually almost Hulk-like. When she turns into the She-Hulk now, she is jacked and almost 9 feet tall. When it started, she went from like a 6 foot tall statuesque woman to a maybe 7 foot tall, green, slightly jacked, but still statuesque woman.
Best girl.
Yeah. Luminous asked just that. Do you think She-Hulk will be a CGI motion capture of the actress like the Hulk in the Marvel movies? Yeah, I think that they have to. Tatiana Maslany is so short, I don't think that they could in any way, believably make her become a She-Hulk unless they were going to decide that it was just strength and not a physical size change, which would be a pretty big change from the storyline.
Oh, absolutely.
And since they have, not only would it not be canon, they also already have, as you point out, the history of doing that with a male character. It would be kind of insulting to not do it with a female character.
Yeah, and like they've done it twice already. They did it once with Josh Brolin, and then Mark Ruffalo. So
yeah, that's true. Wife of Penrose. What about prosthetics for the She-Hulk? Yeah, the problem with live. Yeah, so if you have somebody who transforms into somebody with like big muscles, you can use a muscle suit, and they've done it on a lot of the Arrowverse shows.
They did it in Shazam,
and they did it in Shazam. They did it to great effect in Shazam. But when you start with somebody who's like 5'2", you got to go lifts. You got to figure out a way to make the lifts look believable. You've got to. Yeah, it's almost impossible to do this with prosthetics, waifu. I think. Now, I'm not a special effects expert by any means, so take that for whatever you want to take it with.
That would require a lot of wire fu, I think.
Yeah, and if you do the CGI Hulk stuff, you don't need a lot of wire, or She-Hulk stuff. You don't need a lot of wire fu except for like the jumping. But great choice as far as the actress for Jennifer Walters. Very, she's outstanding. I'm really looking forward to this. Whenever it happens. Which, again, is...
Who knows?
Right. They literally just named a director and a star. They had named the head writer a while back, so maybe there's stuff in the works, but still. Oh, and by the way, just to be clear, this has not been confirmed yet by Disney or Marvel, but Mark Ruffalo tweeted out, "Welcome to the family." And Deadline's inside sources, this came from Deadline.com, their inside sources are usually really solid. So I would treat this as a almost guaranteed rumor.
I mean, it was like Hulk being in the picture was a huge part of her origins.
Yes. Yeah, which makes me wonder whether or not Ruffalo is actually going to be in like the pilot episode. He doesn't have to be. And in fact, I don't think the Hulk was physically present when Jennifer Walters became the She-Hulk. I
know in the animated series, in the '90s animated series, she received a blood transfusion from Bruce.
Right. Yeah, that's true. It was actually body to body blood transfusion. It wasn't his blood in a bag. But anyway, we'll see that when it happens, whenever that is. All right, moving on to, this was my absolute favorite thing in the news, in the nerd news this past week. If you haven't seen it, the trailer for WandaVision dropped.
Yeah.
It's mind-bendingly freaky. It's wonderful. This image is... When we talked about this a bunch of times before, we showed the image of Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda Maximoff in what is clearly a Halloween costume version of her Scarlet Witch costume from the comic books. And they show that concept is repeated with the Vision. This is the Vision's look from the comic books, with Paul Bettany as the Vision and talk about meta and deep and wonderful.
I loved it.
But the feeling is like, it's Welcome to Pleasantville meets Get Out. It's creepy as hell. The throwbacks, it's interesting. I should do a poll. I think I'll do this if we do an article on this. Or I'll just throw this out there and anybody can comment on this afterwards or, just message us. Who remembers or gets what shows they're referencing with the black and white stuff? Their audience doesn't know what this stuff is, or their target audience doesn't.
Yeah, the target. But I mean, I'm old enough to remember a lot of those references, like Leave It to Beaver,
Dick Van Dyke Show. It's I Love Lucy, Dick Van Dyke, Leave It to Beaver. It's all of those, late 50s, early 60s black and white sitcoms. And the way they're just 100% Bewitched.
Yes.
Where she does the little sparkly thing I mean, it's like right out of Bewitched. The only thing is she doesn't twitch her nose. That's the only difference. It's just wonderful. I was absolutely thrilled. I am kind of upset that they didn't really give any kind of reveal about who the bad guy is, which makes me wonder whether, in fact, Wanda is going to be the, if not villain, her own antagonist in this series, setting her up to be potentially an antagonist in the Doctor Strange sequel.
I like looking at the trailer. I definitely get like a lot of potential lead into Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the case. Waifu Pennywise brings up an excellent point, so I'm bringing the picture of the Vision back up here. I thought that character died. Yeah. And in fact, he was killed by Thanos before the snap, so he did not come back after the fix of the snap. Which makes you wonder how he is in this series, how he's going to be going forward, if he is going to be going forward in any of the other series.
I'm guesstimating an M Day scenario.
So M Day and or House of M were two separate but connected Marvel Comics short-run miniseries that both were related to the fact that at one point Scarlet Witch had a complete mental breakdown. And I'm not going to go in. There are some wonderful YouTube channels that explain
much better than we could.
Right. What happened to Wanda that caused her to go insane. But the series coming up, WandaVision, may set up the fact that, as was hinted at in Endgame and other things, that she may be the most powerful person in the MCU.
Yeah.
She was pulling Thanos' armor apart on his body in Endgame with her magic.
She wasn't exactly at her most stable in that battle.
Right. In the comics, her ability can alter reality at essentially a universal scale.
Her powers at this point have been classified as reality manipulation.
Yes. So it is entirely possible she could literally bring her husband back, or boyfriend, they're not married in the MCU, back to life. Waifu Pennywise, wait, a real mental breakdown. Yeah, in the comic book, again, find somebody else's YouTube channel that will explain it because it takes way too long to do it. But she does have a mental breakdown for absolutely 100% believable reasons having to do with her children, what happened to them. It's kind of challenging and tough to get through, but it's some of the most emotionally impactful storyline writing that was done for various characters in the Marvel Comics. And the character, obviously not Elizabeth Olsen, not the actress. She did not have a mental breakdown, if that's what you're asking. No. The character Wanda Maximoff had a mental breakdown in the comics, and it appears that's going to be the case here in the show. Anyway, we also found out it will drop before the end of the year. In the promotional stuff for this, Disney Plus said that their streaming service, premiered 1 year ago, and they're really looking forward to the show. I can't remember exactly what they put it. Basically, saying the show premiering sometime before the end of this calendar year. So they're implying that it will be sometime between November 12th and December 31st. And
gift.
Yeah, I think there was a misunderstanding there. Thank you, Waifu Pennywise, for showing me that I cleared that up. Elizabeth Olsen did not have a mental breakdown. The character Wanda Maximoff did in the comics. So by the end of the year, WandaVision. Yes, please. Please, please, please. I'm smacking my microphone around. I'm so excited. All right, less exciting, and our last topic. So this dropped a couple of days ago, or yesterday, was it? So Microsoft is going to buy ZeniMax Media, which owns the game development studios Bethesda, id Software, Arcane, there's a little tiny thing I can't remember. I can't read all of the others that are underneath there. But anyway, for $7.5 billion, folks, ka-ching, that's with a B, and they're going to put it under the Xbox label, with a statement that a lot of these games, their future releases, will be Xbox exclusives. Elder Scrolls, Wolfenstein, Fallout, Doom, Dishonored, Evil Within, Prey, etc., etc., etc. I'm not crazy about this idea.
I don't really have strong opinions on it. Like, it sucks that I won't be able to play another Doom game on PlayStation ever again.
Well, see, that's just, I don't know that. My guess is, or my hope is, that what they're going to be doing when they say exclusive, you can still buy the Xbox Game Pass for PC. And my guess is that's what they're going to do, is that they're going to put all this stuff as an Xbox exclusive, but that means you can, if you buy the Xbox Game Pass, you can still play it on your PC. I can't imagine any id Software game not being originally developed for the PC, frankly. Doom, Wolfenstein, they're PC games. They have console ports, but they're PC games right at their core.
Yes.
I can't imagine that not being the case going forward. But who knows? Xbox might really need some exclusivity to try to sell the new Xbox.
And moreover, I think Bethesda could use that shot in the arm, considering that they haven't had the best 2 years now.
Yeah. There's no way around it. Fallout 76 was an unmitigated nightmare of a game release, of a game marketing, of follow-up to the mistakes that they made in the game marketing and the release. It was horrible.
I mean, and what was that, Youngblood? It was mediocre at best.
Yeah, they've had some. They've had challenging games that nobody.
On Elder Scrolls Blades.
Hey, I'm not sure that you can blame them for. I guess they put it out, so I guess you can blame them for that. If they want to test the waters for mobile games, makes sense. There are people. Plenty of people do that. Warner Brothers DC shifted almost all of their work over to games that can be played on mobile. But Fallout is, again, it's a PC/console game. And up to Fallout 4, it was generally really well respected. And then 76 came out and just
ruined all that goodwill.
Absolutely tanked. The latest Wolfenstein game, a lot of people weren't crazy about the gameplay, the storyline. I haven't played it yet, but I know an awful lot of the criticisms about the fact that it's 2 female leads and they're Blazkowicz's daughters, and there are a lot of people on the internet who play first-person shooter games that don't want any of them their women's as their lead characters.
Course. And I'm definitely not one of those people. It's my problem with it was, again, like, it's trying to do hard to be hip and cool and cater to the kids.
Yeah, that's true. And it's a little. Now, every iteration of the newer versions of the Wolfenstein games have sort of moved this sort of science fiction technology forward, and this gets pretty out there with the suits that they're wearing and so on. I mean, they're almost crisis suits. Oh, well, that's a good point. So, Waifu Pennywise, I thought Fallout 76 was like Fortnite. Not at all, really. It was more like their attempt to make a action survival game like Conan Exiles, where you don't really fight against NPCs. You fight against each other, and you build towns and settlements and stuff like that. And
it was too ambitious, honestly.
Well, and it wasn't what Fallout was. I mean, Fallout is an RPG. It's a role playing game. You need quests, and there were no quests. You need NPCs to interact with. There were none of those to speak of in the initial iteration of Fallout 76. And they changed that. They actually turned it into much more of an RPG because they realized people just hated it. But you bring up the other thing, but I heard Fallout Miami is coming out. Fallout Miami is not a Bethesda product. It is a full-scale mod of Fallout 4. So instead of being set in New England, they are reskinning everything and modifying it to be set in Miami. But it's a mod, which means it's an after product. Somebody else is making that.
That sounds pretty interesting.
If you haven't seen it, Byron, go to YouTube after the show and check out the trailer. It's hilarious. It's got so many wonderful nods to like Miami Vice, and it's really cool.
Miami, basically a desert.
Not really. There are a lot of swamps. Gators, mutated gators are a thing, and they're nasty. But yeah, it looks great. But yeah, Waifu, that is not an official Bethesda product. It's a mod. But it will probably be more popular than Fallout 76 was, even though it's not going to really... Anybody who's got Fallout 4 is probably going to run out and try to nab this thing right out of the gate. Which I might, even though I haven't finished Fallout 4.
I might have to check it out myself.
Yeah. I'm from Maine originally, and I desperately need to get up to Bar Harbor, or their version of Bar Harbor. But I'm sort of stuck in the middle of the game right now. But that's it, folks. That's our show. Gosh, we went long for just two people.
That's what she said.
Okay. On that note, folks, apologize and say goodnight.
All right, guys. Byron D0. Check out my comic yet again. It's codename Blackbird.thecomicseries.com.
That's what it is. You know what? I never say this, folks. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe to our channel. This is not the typical content. We do this once a week, but we have all sorts of cosplayer interviews and con stuff when there was cons. We're sort of recycling some of that now. But lots of really awesome cosplayer interviews that are on there. Skits and other things from conventions that are super popular and really funny and crazy. Like this if you like it. Don't like it if you don't like it. But please don't like it.
And I also do occasional review videos on the channel as well.
That's true. Byron does that, and written reviews and video reviews, and he's a reviewing machine. Luminous, good night all. Thank you, and we will see you next week. I don't know about you folks in the rest of the country, but here in New England, it's happened. Stay warm, stay safe, and stay warm. So I hate this.
Stay safe, kids.
Good night.